Got the Kerri Marquadt scent tape, gift set, tape number 4. Here, Mr. Steak's Competitive Edge, Nobody Loves an Absentee, Jim Mather, 676, that's June 1976, 50 minutes, Raider, Bomber, Michael, and Dries, and it's a red tape, a red and white tape.
Greetings to you from Denver, Colorado. This is Jim Mather, back to share with you on this month's poster program. And the poster this month is talking about Nobody Loves an Absentee. And when I first think about this, it sounds a little bit shallow, but as you get further into it, there's nothing shallow about it at all. It has to do with professionalism. I don't believe any of us would like to be wheeled into the operating room with the bright lights and to just be going into unconsciousness and hear the surgeon say, "Where's that head nurse?" and hear somebody say, "She's ill today," or "She just called in ill." Or it could be his surgeon assistant and say, "He's not going to be able to make it. He got tied up or something happened to delay him." And hear the surgeon say, "Well, okay, we'll try to go ahead and manage without them." For some reason, just as you're about to go into unconsciousness, that doesn't give you a very good feeling. That's rather personal, and maybe it doesn't make too much sense. But I'm sure that there's a possibility there's times when that happens. In almost any professional area, whether it's basketball or football, it's the professional that has to be there and be there on time. The quarterback must be there. The end must be there. It doesn't make any difference what the position is. They've got to be there. The same thing is true in basketball. The same thing is true in school. If they go into the schoolroom and the teacher's not there, this is just unprofessional, and there's too many people that suffer as a result. I'm sure, again, when you and I get aboard an airplane, we'd like to think that the airplane has been serviced and that all members of the crew's there. Certainly, those that are going to be serving us back in our cabin area, but they're servicing probably the part that's not as important. The important part is the co-pilot there, and is the pilot there. Okay, so the difference is professionalism, and probably the people who really do the most beautiful job of that is television and stage plays, radio, where everything is timed down and everybody has their job. So we'll be talking a little bit about that with today's participants on this tape. The first one will be George Rader from Canton, Ohio. The second is Pat Bomber from Schofield, Wisconsin. Also Tom Michael from Decatur, Illinois. And I believe the excellent treat of having Tim Dries, our regional director, share with us. On the phone we have Mr. George Rader, our franchised associate from Canton, Ohio. Good morning, George.
Good morning, Mr. Mather.
George, would you tell us a little bit about your family?
Okay. I have 2 boys and a lovely wife, and the boys the one is 3 years old and the other one is 6 years old.
Uh-huh. What are their names?
Well, the youngest is Tracy, and the oldest is Robbie. Robert, we call him Robbie. And give him the nickname. Everybody has a nickname.
Right.
But,
and what is your wife's name?
Diane.
Diane. Okay. What did you do prior to becoming involved in Mr. Steak, George?
I worked for a bearing manufacturer. Here.
Bearing? Like automobile bearings?
Right. A tapered bearing manufacturing, Tyson's bearing manufacturing, and got into the restaurant business.
Was this your own restaurant, or?
Yeah, this is mine.
What kind was it?
No, it was a Mr. Steak restaurant.
Oh, I see. I thought you meant prior to that.
No.
Oh, you went right out of the bearing manufacturing business into Mr. Steak.
Yeah, and I knew absolutely nothing about the restaurant business. It was a little scary.
How
how long ago was that, Joe?
That was in 1971.
1971.
1971, right, in October.
Uh-huh.
I got in with Mr. Stake here at Canton, and been here ever since. I've been very pleased that I did it. It was a good move.
Hey, George, getting right into the tape that, or the poster that we have here that says "Nobody Loves an Absentee." What could you share with the rest of the associates and their staff around the country?
Well, you know, absenteeism is a hard thing to describe as far as the reasons for it or what have you. And I've been sitting and was thinking about what actually causes absenteeism and who suffers from it. And the main person that suffers from it is our guests. The individuals that come in and they expect to have the service and to have the steaks that's properly cooked and brought to them the proper way. And they're the first individuals to suffer from it. The second individuals to suffer from it is the other staff members. To where if little Susie, she calls off and she's supposed to be in here at 4:30 and she calls off at 10 after 4 and they're trying to get a hold of somebody else to come in on short notice and they have plans to go here or to go there, it makes it kind of tough on them to where they have to drop their plans. It makes it even, you know, it makes it hard on me to have to ask them to come in. And it's just a bad situation all the way around. Everybody suffers from it.
Right.
And it's one thing to where where I came back to try to correct the problem. I can remember a while back where we had some problems with the absenteeism and some of the kids were calling off and they needed for this off and for that off because a lot of our staff that works in Mr. Steak restaurants are between the ages of 16 to 20. And in those formative years, there's a lot of things that's important to them to where somebody that's a little bit settled down or what have you, those particular items aren't quite as important, and they've matured enough to make the transition between what sacrifices they're going to have to make for their job and to make a living and what have you. But I came to a solution to where it's worked very good for me, and I put on enough help to where we have plenty of part-time help to where if the staff members here, if they need a particular day or days off for the prom or for graduations or for this dance or what have you, and they let me know about a week ahead of time, I change my schedules weekly to where I can arrange it for them, to give it to them off, rather than them just saying, well, if I ask him for it off, he's not going to give it to me off because he's shorthanded and he just doesn't have the help, so consequently every time I ask him for a particular day off, he says, well, I'm sorry, I need you for this, I need you for that. And the only way to correct it is to have extra people on for that, and then too, it gives the employees a better attitude towards their job.
Well, has this been something that actually has had a material difference in the absenteeism in your restaurant?
Yeah, I have very little absenteeism anymore. And I make sure that during the interviews that all of them understand that. And, I'll put up with a staff member in the beginning if they're a little bit slow, they're having little problems with this or having problems with that, as long as they're showing good faith and trying and, making that effort to correct that. But regardless of how good that employee is, if they're not here, they're the worst one I have. So it makes it real tough at times.
Well, I can understand that. But so your solution is starting back at the interview, if I understand it correctly, and explaining that this is a major problem and you need cooperation on that. And then secondly, to have enough people trained as far as a backup is concerned that you can make a change if they will let you know early enough.
Right, and we trade around on the schedule a little bit, saying that something comes up and they didn't know about it, and she or he needs a particular day off, and if she can get somebody, it is their responsibility to get somebody to switch with. And they have to get it okayed by me, and if it's all right with me, as fine. In most cases, there's no problem at all if they can get somebody else to switch back and forth. So they kind of work it out among themselves because everybody's going to need a particular day off that they really didn't know it was coming up.
Let me ask you this, George. With the having so many people trained for the job, is there a problem being able to maintain these people because you're not able to give them enough hours work?
No. In the beginning it was, when volume was down a little bit, but as volume increased, I have no problems with it. I had it in the beginning, and I would imagine that everybody will, that in the beginning they're going to have the staff members saying, well, I'm not getting enough hours, I need more money. And then I come back to them and I say, well, listen, it's either one of two things. Either you want a lot of hours, that's fine, and I'll schedule you for them and we'll put you on full time, but you have to be here. There's no way that I can give you off this day and switch around and go back and forth and still give you plenty of hours too at the same time.
Okay, I paused it just because I wanted to see if that noise, there's an ambient noise. This is Lucas Mather, the grandson of Grandpa, Jim Mather, the interviewer. And I wanted to see if it was this fan we have, or if it was something outside on the street outside. It sounds like it's part of the tape or the tape player. I think it's the tape.
It's possible for me to do that. Either we have enough employees to where we can give them plenty of days off. If they need the days off, there's no problem, and it gives them a better attitude. And surprisingly enough, that after you get it working, and it takes 6, 8 months, almost a year before you can get it rolling real well for you, that the attitude of the staff members changes, and you don't have them calling off as much. I mean, when they call off, they're sick.
Okay, so one of the things that I've gotten from what you say here is when you have fewer people available to fill in, then they're more likely to consider the fact that if they ask you for time off, you won't give it to them, so they have to make up a story about it.
Right.
And take it off anyway.
Right.
Okay.
And if I do get an individual that is, they just kind of abuse that privilege, per se. And I'll bring them in the office and we have a talk about it to where, I've had some individuals that it seemed like every week they were changing their schedule. They were wanting this day off and they was moving it around and what have you. And then pretty soon it ended up to where there was no need for me to really make out a schedule because they were changing it so much and I had to put a stop to that. And I try to convey it to them that it's a privilege to change that around rather than just something that's ordinary to where they just do it regardless.
Right.
And it works out pretty good. You always have a few that'll abuse regardless of what it is.
Right.
There'll be those minute few, and you'll find them out real quick. And consequently, those few, if they don't make the changes, you're going to have to let them go.
Right.
It'll help you too is if you do have enough members on your staff, that if something does come up to where an individual isn't performing the way they should, or abusing the different privileges that's allowed to them in that, and to where it makes it a good working conditions for everybody concerned, that you have that latitude to let them go right there, rather than saying, well, I'm a little bit short-handed, I'm going to keep that individual for another week or another 2 weeks, and I'm going to replace them.
Yes, I understand what you're saying.
And it costs you more money whenever you do it that way.
Right.
Because if the other employees they'll see what they're getting away with, and they'll say, well, if
they can do the same thing.
Right. If she's getting away with it or he's getting away with it, well, I'm going to do it too.
Right.
And it'll cause you a lot of problems in the long run.
Okay, George Rader in Canton, Ohio, I appreciate very much your sharing this morning on this tape with us, and want to wish you and your staff much good fortune. And say hello to Diane for us, will you?
I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. On the phone is Pat Baumer in Schofield, Wisconsin. Good morning, Pat.
Good morning, Jim.
Thank you for taking the time to visit with us on the phone.
It's my pleasure.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, your family?
Well, Jim, I've been married for approximately 4 years. I have a baby daughter, 17 months old. We've been with Mr. Stake approximately 4 years also. In fact, I got married on on the 6th of January, and I went with Mr. Steak on the 7th of January. My honeymoon was 1 day long.
Oh, you're kidding. You mean the same year?
The same year.
Good night. What a way to spend a honeymoon.
Right.
And I'm sure...
reminded me of that all the time.
What is your wife's name?
Sue.
Sue. She reminds you about that.
She reminds me of that all the time.
Well, have you been able to take a trip since then?
Yes, a couple trips. Usually go and visit other Mr. Steaks, though.
And you've called it a honeymoon?
And we call them honeymoons.
Right. Sue might not agree with that, but...
She probably would.
Right. Okay. And you've been in the Mr. Steak for 4 years. What did you do prior to becoming involved in Mr. Steak?
I worked as a nightclub manager for about 3 years prior to coming to Mr. Steak, and it was quite a transition. It was really an education for me to come into a system like Mr. Steak, coming out of the nightclub concept. A very enjoyable transition, I might add.
Well, I can understand. How many years did you say you were involved in that?
The nightclub, I managed one for 3 years. Prior to that, my father had been in the business all his life, so I kind of grew up in the restaurant business.
I see.
He managed his nightclub for 3 years until he died.
Uh-huh. Where was that nightclub?
Janesville, Wisconsin.
Janesville.
Right.
Well, back there where Chuck Rorty and
that was my
his...
introduction to Mr. Steak. Chuck Rorty's restaurant was the thing that impressed me about Mr. Steak. The first time I'd ever been into Mr. Steak was with Chuck Rorty and Bill Cochan. And it was my introduction, and I think 5-6 short weeks after that, I was working for Mr. Steak.
Well, Chuck and Carol are some of our favorite people, as you probably know.
Yes, I do.
Okay, we're talking about Nobody Loves an Absentee, and Pat, would you share with me and also with the rest of our associates around the country, what do you think about it and what some of your experiences have been?
Well, Jim, I think it starts out when you first introduce that employee to your restaurant, the initial training. If you cover how inconvenienced that staff member could become when you miss your shift, then I think it hits home all the harder. If the shift can't be covered, then the void or the absence that you present to the restaurant is going to ultimately hurt our guest. And when the guest suffers, the restaurant suffers.
So you're saying the person who really is hurt by the entire thing is the guest?
Is the guest. But you back it up and tell them not only are they hurting they're ultimately hurting the restaurant, then they're also hurting other staff members by the fact that they have to work a little bit harder just to cover that void that has been presented because they didn't have the courtesy to show up for the shift.
Right. Would you say that you're having less problems or more problems with absenteeism now than when you first started?
I feel it's less. I really think that the more we get into the system and stay in the system, the way it's been projected from the day I started with Mr. Steak, the better we are at getting that point across to that employee. And I think training continues by the members themselves, the staff members themselves. They kind of precipitate the lack of absenteeism. If you have good employees in the restaurant and they're taken care of, covering their shifts when they're sick or when they want off, they have the type of rapport that they develop with the other employees. I work for you, you work for me. We have that type of a teamwork or camaraderie. Then it just continues. If somebody drops the ball and doesn't participate, doesn't work for somebody else, then it starts to break down. And that's what we try and eliminate. And the employee that doesn't want to work for anybody, doesn't want to participate in the program, is not a team member. And then we just, they kind of leave, Jim. They just don't stay around.
Do you find that the other staff members bring peer group pressure on them?
They do, right. They just say, listen, you're not playing the game the way Mr. Balmer and Mr. Boyden, my manager, want us to play the game, and this isn't the way we do it. And they report it to us. They say, listen, this guy just doesn't, or this girl just doesn't want to do things the way you suggested to me that we should do it. And then the pressure comes on them.
Uh-huh. Do you feel that they themselves, through the experience, have recognized the kind of pressure it puts on them when another staff member does not show up?
Absolutely. I tell them the void that's created, if we can't replace you at that time because it's 5 minutes before shift, you don't show up, we think, well, maybe you'll be here, and you never do show up. We end up being short one person. And these employees that are now being asked to work just a little bit harder to cover that void that you created aren't getting paid anymore for it. They resent the fact that they can't do the job they've been trained to do because they're being stretched further than their ability is. And I think that's unfair to them, it's unfair to myself, the owner of the restaurant, and you should be shamed by it. And I've actually told employees that have been absent, I want you to go out and apologize to so-and-so and so-and-so because they had to pick up 2 of your tables last night.
Is that right?
Because you couldn't be there to take care of yourself.
Right.
Those guests probably didn't get as good a service as they should have gotten.
In fact, can you recall you or your managers or assistant managers or anybody else doing anything specifically that perhaps some of the other of our managers around the country could pick up and incorporate into their training or practice?
Well, Jim, I think it gets right back down to that initial first 2 or 3 hour introduction. I think if you don't spend that time when you first talk to that new employee, that new staff member.
You're talking about the interview?
You've interviewed them now and you've selected them. They're going to be part of the team. But let them understand the rules, the way you play that game. I keep calling this a game. Maybe I shouldn't be using that term, but that's the way I kind of look at it. Teamwork, professionalism, professional athletes. I think we can be as professional as the most professional athlete when we talk about the way we do our jobs.
Absolutely.
And I think when you establish the way you want it to be initially, then there 2 or 3 months down the road, when something does happen, they'll say, well, gee, I didn't know that was part of the game plan. They know right away. So then you can always go back and say, you remember when we talked initially about teamwork and working for somebody? Yeah, I remember that, Mr. Ballmer. Well, why aren't you participating? Well, they weren't working for me, so I'm not working for them. So then we get everybody together, and we discuss it and solve it, hopefully.
Great. So the term we've used around here for many, many years are the importance of explaining ground rules prior to the commencement of the relationship.
Absolutely. Training. Just training. That's the name of the game, I think.
I think maybe the same thing might be true in marriage, wouldn't you?
I agree.
Okay. Is there anything else you could share with us, Pat, along this idea, or any of the other thoughts that we've discussed on the other tapes?
Well, Jim, one more thing about this absenteeism. I asked a couple of my staff members to take a look at the poster and ask them what they thought it meant with the doghouse and
Great.
just what did that mean to them? And I got some interesting observations. A couple of them said, I think that might mean, Mr. Ballmer, that staff member, and they didn't use staff member, but I'm trying to get them to use it, is actually physically here, but not mentally here. I said, well, could you explain that? Well, a lot of times people come to work physically, but they just never get mentally equipped to do the job that they should. And I think that can mean, and we always think of the word absent as not being there physically, but I think mentally is also a way we can look at the word absentee, not being there mentally. And I thought that was interesting.
Well, I think that is very interesting. Isn't that interesting that first of all, you were led to ask them, and then to come about with a response that, quite frankly, I hadn't thought about.
Yeah, it was something, it escaped me completely, because I guess I was so ingrained in absent being not present, when actually, we probably, if we look at our staff very closely, we'll find 2 or 3 every day that walk around like you wonder if they're really in the restaurant, involved, or if they're actually still reliving that last evening they had with their boyfriend, or whatever they're thinking about. They're obviously not involved. And then what do we do to get them to be mentally present and not mentally absent?
I've heard priests and pastors and rabbis indicate that they feel the same way sometimes about their congregations.
I bet.
As they look out there.
I bet.
Well, that's a great reaction.
Yes.
So then what can we do about that?
I think as long as we're aware that the problem is there, and I think as management we have to sit down I think it's just motivation, Jim. I think you motivate every day. You don't motivate at an employee meeting or staff meeting once a month. You motivate when you need to motivate, and that may be every day if that's the case. So motivation, motivate.
Great, great. Okay, well, Pat Bomber in Schofield, Wisconsin, we appreciate very much your sharing with us on the tape this morning, and want to wish you much continued good fortune with you, your staff, and your family.
Thank you, Jim.
We have on the telephone from Decatur, Illinois, Mr. Tom Michael. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Mr. Mather.
Tom, would you share with our associates across the country and with me a little bit about your family?
I'd love to. First of all, I've been married for 18 years, which is great right now.
Yes, however, remembering you, Tom, I can't imagine you've been married 18 years.
Well, I look myself in the mirror in the morning when I should be old, but I'm still looking young, I think.
Well, yes, you found that secret. Okay, what is your wife's name?
I call her Maggie. That's her name she loves.
Maggie?
Yes.
Is that right?
So I get the name Jiggs once in a while.
I can imagine. All right, do you have any children?
I have 3 beautiful daughters, and the oldest one is 16 who works here as my hostess, and I have one 14 and 12.
Okay, what did you do prior to becoming involved in Mr. Steak?
Well, I started off like most people, coming out of the service, broke and no job, and scratching my way along. I ended up an international harvester in East Moline, Illinois, which I put in 8 years. Looking elsewhere with the dream I had in mind, I did find Mr. Steak in Davenport, Iowa. And upon looking into this, Howard Melcher was there, the manager and owner, and I was looking for an assistant manager. And through conversation, I retired from international and went to work for Holly. So I've been real happy there. I was with him for 6.5 years until I got an opportunity to get my own unit, my own restaurant here.
Well, that's great. I didn't recall that Howard was the one that actually trained you.
Right.
Beautiful. And I'm that much more grateful to Howard Melcher. Now, how long have you been in your own restaurant?
Right here, I've been here 4 years this fall.
Okay, you have your poster there, and we're discussing this morning, Nobody Loves an Absentee. Could you share with us some of your experiences along that line?
Well, most memorable, I think we all know from our own experiences with the turmoil and commotion, an absentee causes. And I have my classification or definition of an absentee is a person being not present or temporarily not present. And whether he's tardy or not, the creation it causes. And my most notable instance just a few weeks ago on a Saturday night, I usually have my staff come in at 4:30 in the evening due to early business, and right at 4:30 I received a phone call from one of my cooks who evidently got sick in the afternoon with the flu. And the no-show hung the phone up, the phone rang again, and a pit man called up who fell down the steps before coming to work. So during this turmoil of guests piling in, created a problem of frantically on the phone, I need a replacement. Realizing no replacement, I was to wheel that night, and then finding somebody to fill my shoes in out on the floor did cause a turmoil and commotion. And it was a frantic 20 minutes. Me trying to cook, already had got the tickets down, had to grab a busboy to help me out, and thank God I found a ex-employee, staff member that used to cook for me, did come in for me, and I reward him greatly for coming in. And it was a very busy night. So during this time, like most absentee or tardyism, what have you, does cause a turmoil of realigning your staff in different areas, picking up the slack. There is commotion. At times, temperament, attitude deteriorates, and our most important person, the guest, does sense a change in the atmosphere, whether it's temporarily, which eventually, being halfway pros, the staff does readjust. But during this time, it does lose business, service, and which is very disheartening.
Please turn the tape over.
Okay. Sounds like it might be the tape player. Or maybe it's just the tape. It's not the tape player. Must have been the tape. That sound.
So you take it down to the end result of the fact that the guest is the one that is really being hurt the most.
Yes.
And also you're talking about the additional pressures it puts on the other staff members.
Very much so.
In other words, they can't perform based upon how they would normally, again, serve the guests in their area.
They can adjust. It's a question of the time involved to readjust. I mean, most absentees, most of the time, you do not know about them on time. It's a time element involved here. And if a staff member does call and put enough time, to warn you, it's much easier and there's no problem involved. But if the staff member who does not call or comes in late, the last minute phone call, especially depending on the time of your business flow, and that does create a hectic situation.
Well, Tom, do you feel that this problem is less of a problem now in your restaurant than it was when you first started?
I believe so. I have a problem of basically health problem here of getting people to really want to work. I'm a little choosy who I hire, and so consequently you get a little lenient at times and let the staff members get by a little more than normal. They don't take advantage of you, but finding replacements, I had the problem for quite a while. Now it seems like I'm getting more and better people that have more qualifications and better caliber of individuals, so I'm having less and less problems.
All right. Could you tell me, have you or any of your staff come up with ideas or thoughts that could be shared with others that specifically pertain to the improvement of this condition?
Well, I've not interviewed, but I've talked to most of my staff during the week, remind them I'm working on tape, and I have a few staff who pretty well occasionally do come in tardy, and I feel that their time cycles is behind time about 5 minutes. But from talking to all my staff members, and I've talked to most of them, hopefully for ideas, their feelings on absenteeism, what it does create, how they feel, and I got a lot of good results from it.
What were the suggestions that they made?
I went over the absenteeism here and explaining the turmoil it creates in that. If anyone has suggestions or viewpoints, and besides occasional temperament changes or attitude and the hustle bustle to catch up, I had one hostess, Janet, who recommended also that we can be basically all present on the job, full crew, everybody on duty on the right time. If we have a staff member or two who are not in a working area during busy hours or working hours, who may go out and have a cigarette break or playing around or some calls or some reason, they're basically absent from their station, which can create disservice to our guests.
Right.
And this was very important, I felt, and it's very obvious. And we also, whether we don't do it here, thank God, but she also stated that if a manager also is in his office during working hours and is not on the job, on the floor, either P&R or keeping the system on a smooth go out there, because no matter how well your staff is trained, without a manager or assistant manager on the job present, does not function 100%. So she felt that even the manager is in the office and he should be out on the floor during working hours, that this can be considered being absent also.
Is that right? That kind of bounced back, didn't it? That's great. I wouldn't have expected that, but that's what happens when you ask others for their opinion, isn't it? Okay, anything else that you could share with us?
Well, I went back referring to this, my hostess Janet, who has been coming in, and she fools me, comes in on time occasionally, and I told her we're going to be on tape, and the subject, nobody loves an absentee, and she says, and so I did bring up the subject on her, and it seems like nothing I can do to get her in on time, so she promised me this week, starting last Monday, she would be on time every day, every night that she works, since we're going to be on tape. And I told her if she did not keep her deal, then I would reveal her last name.
Is that right?
So,
Do we get to know her last name, or has she been faithful?
she's been faithful.
Hey, that's great. You might have made a turnabout there.
That's with my really only problem. I have a consistent problem with her, and I think again, being a model employee, staff member, that it's kind of hard. You can't fire, anyone for this reason, because most of the time she does late. Seems to be not at peak time,
Right.
in the morning, which is immaterial really, but the responsibility of being there on your job.
Right. Tom, is there anything else you'd like to share with your associates around the country?
Yep. Manager who makes a schedule, being that maybe his business is not doing well enough, he understaffs by schedule. And again, having a limited or minimal amount of staff members on the job, and the business calls for more staff members, this also can create the same problem as one being absent. And of course, there's problems of sickness on the job, somebody getting hurt, can cause a temporary absenteeism or commotion. So we can classify or break this word down to many different reasons.
Did I hear you say that by under-scheduling, you can create the same kind of a problem as if there was an absenteeism?
Sure.
That's very interesting. On the previous tape, I don't mean on a previous tape, but I mean earlier on this same tape, I believe it was George Rader that was bringing out the fact that many times we bring this on ourselves by not having enough staff members well trained to where we can actually, in other words, they know that there's nobody to take their place, so they end up afraid to say that they're going to be absent, realizing we wouldn't let them have the time off because we don't have anybody trained to take their place.
Right.
But you're talking about it more in terms of the scheduling rather than having the people available.
Yes, sir. It can happen.
Right.
I've talked to different associates in the field whose lunch business is not, let's say, up to par, or they're not happy with it. And sometimes in the past, I think we're all guilty of saving $1 and keeping the payroll figure down. And I feel this last year since the convention woke up a lot of people with the fact that by adding more staff members that you can increase business. And we still have some hard heads, I feel, that since I have a slow lunch business, I do not need as many people. And it's just the reverse. And therefore, to save the $1, they only staff X amount of staff members for a lunch period.
Right.
Consequently, if busy, those 4 or 5 cannot take well enough service of the guests. And therefore, you do create the same commotion, rush, and lack of service.
The old question, which comes first, the chicken or the egg, or which comes first, the volume or staffing?
Right.
And I think we've had several of our people that are involved in the top 20 who says you must get your staff there to be able to serve the guests, and it's that kind of service that builds the volume.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Well, Tom Michael of Decatur, Illinois, we appreciate your sharing with us on the tape this morning.
All right, thank you, Mr. Miller.
Please greet Maggie and the 3 girls and also your staff for us, and also that one girl that we didn't find out her last name. Congratulate her that we didn't find out.
I shall.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
The next person we've chosen to visit with us on the tape is a little bit of a switch. We've asked Tim Dries, who's the regional coordinator for Mr. Steak, to share some of his experiences. First of all, Tim, could you tell us a little bit about your background? How did you become involved in Mr. Steak?
I came to Mr. Steak in 1969, just after graduating from college at the University of Colorado.
And what did you take while you were...
I was a business major with an area of emphasis in marketing.
All right, and I suppose your father paid your way all the way through and you didn't have to do any work or anything like that?
No, I worked all the way through school, all 4 years. It took me 4.5, as a matter of fact.
And what kind of work did you do the majority of that time?
It was basically working in the food service for the University of Colorado, the dormitory food service.
Great. All right, and you're married?
Yes, my wife's name is Donna.
Donna, okay. And could you share with us what's been some of your experiences as it has to do with the problems of absenteeism?
The majority of the problems that I run into in absenteeism are on openings, where you are working with a lot of new people, and on several occasions, one comes into mind in particular on an opening. Our dishwasher didn't show up on a Friday night, and we didn't have anybody to cover him, so I ended up washing dishes that Friday night on the opening, which was a thrill in itself.
Yes, when actually you should have been out on the floor doing a different job that was you were assigned for that night.
Right.
And this makes the business kind of lopsided that evening. Right?
It sure did.
Right. Well, what's some of your philosophies as far as what causes absenteeism?
I think basically training has the biggest part to do with it. When I think of absenteeism, I always have to ask myself the question of why do we have that problem? And the basic reason, I believe, is a lack of thorough training. I think quite often the young people that we work with just don't have enough thorough training. They don't understand the job. They get confused, and rather than continuing on with it, they begin to lose interest, lose their motivation, and it's, I believe, basically because they just are not as familiar and comfortable with their positions as they should be.
As young people, it probably is reasonable to think in terms that, first of all, they're not thinking about this being their lifetime job, and
right.
It doesn't have the real significance that perhaps later on, as they're a little more mature and when they think this is their career, they would give it a little more attention.
Right, but I think that we as management of restaurants, we can get a lot of additional effort out of these people simply because it is their first position, and I think we can probably begin to give them some good working, lost the word again.
Well, understanding of responsibility?
Right, and start them off on the right foot.
Well, I think you're right. I think we've got a great responsibility from many areas, since in most cases they're not being taught either in family or in school a fiscal responsibility or just an on-the-job responsibility that we could actually help in doing this through this training program you're talking about.
That's right. I think it can add a lot to the motivation of the person themselves, because we're giving them an opportunity. In most cases, this is their first job, and we're really setting some lifetime habits that if we do a good job, not only when they leave us, hopefully those habits will be established in them in whatever they do in the future.
Right.
So we're hopefully adding to a better citizenry all the way around.
Right. Well, Tim, I know that you and the operations department are right now deeply involved in developing an in-house staff training program. Could you tell us anything about that?
Yes, we have spent about the last 3 months trying to detail out in hard copy, in book form, all the duties and responsibilities of each particular job function in the restaurant. It's something that has been needed, I believe, for a long time, and we're working with the training department in trying to develop these materials in a language and a format that can be easily understood and utilized by the
Tim, how does this, pardon me for interrupting you, but how does this vary from what has already been in the field in the form of the operations manual?
The operations manual is good, but it didn't get specific enough in the various job functions. What we intend to have as a final product would be a hardcover booklet that you could hand to the employee when they're hired. In addition, we would have a flip chart presentation with 4 color photographs that would be utilized as an initial indoctrination to Mr. Steak. It would show pictures of the equipment, what it is, how it operates, with a brief description. And then for each person in their particular job function, they would receive a hard copy of exactly what their job function is and what their responsibilities are. And a third phase would be a checklist that would be given to the individual employee that would detail out those responsibilities. And once he has completed the assigned task, he would be checked off by the manager or the person in charge of training that this person has accomplished this particular task and knows everything that there is to know about that particular job function. And that would become a permanent part of their employee records.
Tim, you mentioned a little earlier something about evaluations. Does evaluations fit into this picture you've been talking about?
Right. In the company-affiliated restaurants, we have really begun to stress employee evaluations, and we feel that this training material and the checklist as part of the total employee folder will aid the manager and assist him in being able to evaluate his personnel. I think one of the things that has been sorely lacking in our system is a real stress on evaluations. I think everybody likes to know exactly where they stand in the job they have been doing and what needs to be improved upon. And I think a lot of times our management gets very tied up in the day-to-day routine of running the business, and they evaluate their people on a daily basis verbally, but they never take the time to really sit down and talk with them and formalize it and put it on paper. And I think that's very important. It's very crucial to, especially to the people that we have in our restaurants. Our staff members are young and they need direction. They need to know where they stand and what's being done properly and what's being done improperly.
Well, now, of course, in industry, this has been done for years and years, and here in our home office, why we have our 6-month and our 1-year evaluation. So you're saying we should be taking this into the staff level of the restaurant.
Exactly. It's going to become of even more importance, I believe, as we get into the government regulations with regard to the employee files and the OSHA and EEOC requirements and this type of thing. Mm-hmm. And it's just good business policy, mm-hmm. number one, to have these records on a permanent basis.
Mm-hmm. Well, I see the value of it in our own company. And matter of fact, just recently I was in our human resources department taking a look at some of these past evaluations from different supervisors and department heads and officers, and it's very interesting to be able to look down through them and to be able to see that it was put down in writing areas of excellence as well as areas of need of improvement. And I'm really, you're not doing me the best favor as a manager who I am one of your staff members if you don't also show me where I have an area to improve. If it's all just compliments, then I really don't have the challenge. So I can see the advantage in the restaurant itself.
I believe also it will, in the long run, aid in the morale of the entire staff. It's just got to. If they all know where they stand and where they need to improve, I think the whole level of service and spirit in the restaurant is going to be improved.
Do you think this would have anything to do with affecting the maturity of the staff member?
I believe so, because we will be treating them as adults. Mm. We will be treating them in the real business world. Yes. And I think at their age, more often than not, this would be one of their first experiences to be treated as a real adult and get a real taste of what the business world is like. And a real professional type of approach to the whole thing. And this, more than anything else, is what we'd like to see stressed in the company-affiliated restaurants and all the associates, because it's going to pay off in the long run for them.
Great.
And I think it's going to aid in avoiding the absenteeism problem.
Well, it certainly will help. I don't suppose you ever get it 100% any more than we have 100% here in our home office situation. Well, Tim, I appreciate your sharing with me on this tape and sharing with our associates around the country. I will have to tell you that you're probably going to be teased when you get to the field, and I'll tell you why you'll be teased. Because I've been, in my recent trips, in trying to encourage our managers and staff members of the restaurants to start using the terms staff member, guest, and restaurant, as opposed to those terms that we are programmed and have been programmed for so many years using, and to also emphasize the psychological reason why we use them. I've tried to get a little game going in some of the restaurants, asking them to get 3 different cans and or jars and cut a hole in the top of each one of the lids so that a coin can go in, and then with a big felt pencil or felt pen on a piece of paper around one of the cans, put the word guest, and around another one of the jars put the word restaurant, and another one put the word staff. And that whenever, as a game within the restaurant, when they hear themselves making a mistake, that they must put a nickel in for each one of the mistakes in the particular jar that is appropriate. And since we, as in management, that it's even more important for us to do it, why say put in 5 times as much, like a quarter. So there's going to be some managers, we'll find out whether there be more quarters or nickels in those jars, and knowing that all of us have been in a lot longer and our minds have been more programmed to these other terms, that will probably be more quarters. And one of the restaurants I recall, I believe it was in Duluth, as I was explaining this to Bill Gronlin's crew, that I made a mistake, I believe a couple of times, ended up that I paid $1 before I got out of that trying to explain the game. So I imagine hearing you use the word employee and personnel, that you're going to be nicked for a quarter or 2 as you go around to some of these restaurants. Eventually they may get us reprogrammed where we realize the psychological significance for us to use the proper phrasing. Well, all of you, we appreciate your listening to this tape, and we appreciate George Rader, Pat Baumer, Tom Michael, and Tim Dries for sharing with us on the tape. And until we get with you next month, may we wish that the Heavenly Father continue to guide and bless your personal and your business life according to His most perfect will.
Please advance the tape forward to the end.
All right, this recording was made on the 5th of August, 2026 years after Jesus, by Dr. Lucas J. Mather. That would be Jim Mather's grandson. And this is from a tape that was a gift from Kerri Marquadt, the owner of 7 of the restaurants, including the Cheyenne location. Kerri, thanks for sending this. This tape was called Mr. Steak's Competitive Edge, Nobody Loves an Absentee, Jim Mather, 6/76, that would be June 1976, 50 minutes. Rader, Baumer, that's Rader, Baumer, Michael, spelled the normal way, and Dries, Dries. God bless.